Mets fans, you know the story by now if you've been watching this team over the past 3 months, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure it out to say, hey, the Mets not only have a problem, but it's headlined by their continued pitching incompetency and woes. That is what we're going to break down in today's video, everybody. Everything that is going wrong for the Mets on the pitching front this season, what has plagued them over the past 3+ months that we have beaten an endless drum on all season long with the woes that have plagued this team, unfortunately, as well as the solutions in hand with their young pitching prospects, and just how much of a needle mover, if at all, that they will be for the Mets moving forward this season. We're going to get into a lot, not only on this rotation, on the relievers, and everything in between, everybody. So I want to see your initial reactions and analysis in the comments down below to the following topics that we're about to break down right here, right now, because this comes right after the Mets just dropped their third consecutive ball game in Philadelphia. The Phillies have lost 5 straight ball games. Horrendous baseball has been had by this team. No offense, not enough pitching. Nothing is in unison yet again. But if you want to know my initial reactions, analysis, and frustration from this past night's defeat, make sure to check out our post-game live show here on the platform after you guys watch this video, or simply head over there to the Bleacher Report app, everybody. And you guys, all you need to do is type Mets, and you're going to scroll, and you're going to find a thumbnail, just like the one I have on YouTube for my post-game shows, because it's the same one that I'm using for my 2 to 3 minute recap that I had here in the BR app to let you guys know what is going wrong with this Mets team as they continue to flounder, now having dropped 5 consecutive ball games. And this video is going to hold true and relevant regardless on what the Mets do in their series finale today at the time of this video dropping against the Philadelphia Phillies in a couple hours. So regardless if the Mets blow the doors off the Phillies in that series finale or get cooked again, everything is still going to hold true from this conversation. With that being said, everybody, now let's take a quick look into what we're going to be breaking down today, which includes my segment that I did over the past 24 hours with Brandon London there at the New York Post.
We're talking Mets pitching. We got Tyler Ward, your favorite Mets content creator, not pitching in the rotation anytime soon, but he is in studio. What's up, my guy? Appreciate you coming back in, man.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
All right, let's start with the elephant in the room, Sean Manaea. We've talked about his shaky season before. He hasn't been able to give this team neither length nor be effective. I guess... Is it time to address the obvious? Should Sean Manaea still be in the rotation?
No, he shouldn't still be in this rotation. That's a problem that I have, right? Because we saw Mets skipper Carlos Mendoza post-game last night at the time I was talking right now, saying how he will be in the next turn in the order for the rotation. And on one hand, you say to yourself, you understand it because the Mets are so depleted right now. You already sent down Kodai Senga. All your veterans aren't performing. They can't rely on too many kids at the same time. But in that same breath, Sean Manaea is 3-8 or so this season. Yep. He hasn't went to the 6th inning once. He's allowed 2 home runs in 3 of his 5 outings or so, which has not looked good at all. So when you look at what he's providing, this is a guy that needs surgery at the end of the year with that loose body in his elbow. I think it's time to put him on the injured list now. I really don't see how much more the Mets are going to benefit by having almost a lock for a guy that's going to be giving them meatballs batting practice over 3 to tops 5 innings every 5th, 6th day. And that's why this 6-man rotation, I really do wonder if the Mets, after maybe one more blunder in Manaea, finally say to themselves, okay, now's the time that we're going to take him out. It should have happened probably 2 starts prior at minimum, but I feel that they're going to go down that route unless Sean finally proves himself the next time out there.
I got a stat here for you. It says that early in the first 3 innings, he has a 3.0 ERA. But then he, through 4 through 6, he has a 10.34 ERA. So why, if you're Carlos Mendoza, why are you even still entertaining Sean Manaea being a starter in this rotation?
I think it goes in direct hand with what I just said. They don't really have any options left. That's the problem. You already called up McClain. You already called up Ton. You already called up Spro. All the guys that we talked in studio about previously before they got here. They're all doing their thing for the most part. But outside that, the Mets don't really have another immediate solution in the farm right now. And when you look at not just Manaea's struggles, when you look at Kodai Senga's struggles, when you look at David Peterson, when you look at Clay Holmes, the commonalities, every single veteran starter in this rotation has not been good for pretty much a month and a half now. And that's a major problem when you now have right around 2 weeks to spare to play, and you're just 2 games ahead now of the Giants in the wild card.
You never say that in sports, that the vets are struggling and the young guys are the ones that are exciting and picking up the slack. So in comes McLean, Tong, and Sproat We've seen what these guys have kind of done in a short sample size. They're getting ready for some big baseball to play in October. But which one of these rookie starters? Because you kind of put me onto all three of them. Which one of these rookie starters are you excited to see develop the most and pitch in the postseason?
Out of the three, it has to be the guy that's been the best right now. That's McLean, right?
Okay.
He was the guy who got the call first, and what separated McLean from Ton is Sproat. Granted, Sproat has only had one start so far, so I can't really say much negativity on his part. He's looked good. But McLean, even in his worst outing, I was in attendance in Philadelphia 48 hours ago. He still won 5 innings of 1 earned run baseball. Right now, that would still be the best out of any starter for the Mets. Like, that's how low the bar is. They're not getting length, but even when he is not giving you that much length, he's still giving you quality in a day where he gave up 7 hits, got out of a couple jams. McLean has been that guy, and I think in a very Jacob deGrom-esque fashion, because that was the former ace for this Mets rotation from a couple seasons ago, who the Mets will, funny enough, face this weekend against the Rangers. The Mets never scored runs for Jacob deGrom. They never gave run support offensively when they had great pitching. It's fitting that McLean has his first career loss and a 1-0 defeat. And if there's anything that we've seen from the past, is that is clearly the making of an ace for this Mets team moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, he went 8 innings in his third start against the Phillies. And that's what you're saying. Like, these guys are providing length. And I wonder, is it just because it's like the new kids are on the block and the older guys just don't have as much juice in their arms or just don't have it in their game anymore? But that is something that I definitely want to keep an eye on, because you're going into the postseason and 3 of your starters in the rotation all your age, bro.
Yeah, it's actually some younger. Tom's 22. He's a baby.
That's absolutely crazy to me. All right, but in talking about the reliever situation, who in the bullpen do you trust most as a setup guy for Edwin Diaz?
That's a great question. There's a couple players that come to mind that I think I trust the most in a setup situation, but right away, the guy that's been most reliable for this Mets team outside of Edwin right now has been Brooks Raley. He's one of our lefty relievers. Gregory Soto, Tyler Rogers, those are really the main high leverage guys the Mets have. Ryan Helsley has a lot more work to do before we can start to rely on him as that setup man. But Raley, he's only allowed earned runs in, I believe, 2 out of his first north of 20 outings this season. So he has been as advertised. In game 1 in that loss to the Phillies, he had 1 pitch, 1 out on Schwarber and Harper. Fast forward a day later, the Mets utilized Justin Hageman to face Schwarber and Harper. We see Schwarber hit his 50th home run of the season, and Harper doesn't do too much. But the point is that you have a quality lefty that can go out there and not just carve up some of the best lefty batters in the National League. He can take out righties without a problem as well.
Helsley, you mentioned him. You talked about him kind of being reliable and all, but he did go through that issue of the whole tipping pitches thing. Carlos Mendoza has said that they've fixed that. 1, do you believe that? 2, do you trust Ryan Helsley?
Do I trust Ryan Helsley yet? No, I don't.
No.
I will say the only way that I do trust him is if I attend every game that he's in, because his 3 best games, I've been in attendance for all of them.
Oh, so it's you.
It's clearly me. It all
luck
makes
of the
sense
Wardy.
now. I know, luck of the Wardy. So in a Wardy world this year, Ryan Helsley pitches well when he otherwise hasn't, but the Mets still lose the ball games.
That's how you campaign for free tickets.
Yeah,
right there.
seriously.
I like what you're doing there.
Exactly. But in a serious note, in Helsley, the big problem with him has not only been tipping pitches. We've seen a lot of people come out with great pieces on this, but Trevor May, former Mets reliever, actually came out with a breakdown on YouTube a couple days ago that I implore people to check out, as he really broke down in depth exactly how Helsley's tipping his pitches. And you're seeing the difference in his hands, especially in how he brings them up, and obviously getting the release point of the difference from his fastball to his slider. And as Helsley has said it himself, the media, he's doing this subconsciously. So that's the problem. He's not doing this while thinking. It's just naturally happening. Wow. And he's had tipping issues in the past while facing the Cubs, he said, but nothing has been nearly as egregious to this degree. Like, sometimes there are teams out there that know exactly every single pitch he's throwing. Thankfully, the last time he pitched against the Phillies, he looked much sharper, had a scroll inning. Hopefully that's a step in the right direction for him, because if he does not get himself right and fast, Ryan Helsley is going to quickly find himself as a non-factor in this Mets bullpen when they trade for him to, again, be exactly that true setup man, a dominant reliever, the guy who led all baseball in saves last year with just under 60 for the Cardinals, to be that setup man for Edwin Diaz.
So let's say something happens in the postseason. They lose a game and it comes out that whoever it is that they played was able to read him. He tipped his pitch again. Who would the fan base be more upset with? Helsley for not subconsciously fixing this thing, or Carlos Mendoza for putting him out there and telling people that he's fixed?
That's a great question. When it comes to fandom, it's a results-oriented business. So if we're going to see Helsley get blown up, I think that you're going to see a fair divide of fans being bothered at Helsley while fans being bothered at Mendy. But I think
the New York fans not
I know.
going through some sort of divide.
You could be 10-1, but because you're not 11-0, there's going to be a problem. You understand?
Yeah.
So I think in the concept of what's happening with Helsley in that playoff spot, one, is he in a high leverage or a low leverage situation, right? And how had he performed up to that point? If he started getting a groove and finally looked more like himself in, say, his final 4-5 outings that led him to get that opportunity, and then he blundered, that isn't as much on Mendy as it is on him for not stepping up when he finally looked like he was getting himself right. Now, if he doesn't look good, if he continues to scuffle and be as inconsistent as he's been heading into postseason, and then you utilize him in, say, a one-run ball game, he gets blown up in a high leverage spot, then that is on Carlos Mendoza, whether we like it or not, because he's the man making that decision. And if he gets blown up when the track record hasn't been there, well, color me shocked. Ryan Helsley isn't pitching great baseball. So then I think that's where you really have to emphasize the focus on this was not a great move by Mets manager.
Well, at least you have some sort of formula when it comes to who would you point your finger at.
Oh, absolutely.
But again,
I yap about people every single day, so I got to figure out if it makes sense because he made the wrong decision or if he made the wrong decision,
My guy, Edwin Diaz, he's the Mets' Mariano Rivera, I feel like. And I know a lot of Yankees are going to push back on me for that. It was Inner Sandman in the Bronx. We got the Trumpets in Queens. He's had some ups and downs throughout his career, but right now he is absolutely on fire. So what are you seeing from Edwin Diaz that's telling you that he is one of the best, if not the best closer in the business right now?
Two things. One, it's a walk year. If there's one thing that we know about a lot of pitchers, when they're in contract years, they're either going to make it or they're going to break it. Okay. And he's making it right now. The same way that we saw a couple years ago in his 2022 season for the Mets is he was the best reliever in baseball, which led him to having the largest contract in baseball for a reliever of $100+ million. Now that he's in another walk year because he has an opt-out at the end of the year, we're seeing Edwin Diaz at his best. And it's the most fascinating thing about him is that he really feels like he needs to face adversity to have most success. Almost every single save that he has had this year, it's felt like he's had at least the leadoff runner gets on with a walk or a single, or there's a double somehow, and he's finding himself in an early jam. It's like he needs that early pressure to lock in and then give you some FU fastballs right away, 101 up and in, going to get your slider down and away, those righties, whatever the case may be. He has the poise, he has the composure, but this is a guy who's been pretty dominant for a good stretch of time now. Like he had a 60-save season back in 2018 with the Mariners as a youngster. When he first came to the Mets, he was horrendous his first year and a half. Like batting practice, just could not handle the pressure. All fans are saying, oh no, this guy can't handle New York. But he's a great example of a player that took that adversity, that took the outcry from the fans, and actually used it for the better. He got better every single season from 2019 to 2020 to 2021 to his breakout 2022 season. Unfortunately, was out all 2023 with injury. 2024 last year, he was good and pumped up big time in playoffs. Yeah. And now again, we're seeing Edwin eerily similar to what we saw a couple seasons ago.
You hear that, Devin Williams?
Devin's still shook by Alonso's home run last wild card. That's the
absolutely
problem.
Crazy how one guy can thrive playing here in New York and another guy can kind of just go through it.
Right.
It's just weird watching that two different guys having two different successes or types of successes. Final award, Wardy. Look in your one shot. Let the people know, tell the people final award.
Okay, final word from me. It's going to be more than one word here, but it's the Mets got to lock in. I've been saying this how long? It feels like the entire season. It's do or die time. It's put up or shut up. There is no margin for error, yet this team continues to find themselves making errors and not winning baseball games. If the Mets really want to actually have themselves make something of this season, now is the time for them to start to win consistent baseball. Without that, I think we're reaching a closer reality that they're not going to make playoffs than actually making playoffs, which is a very frustrating thing to say as a fan, but I just hope that they can right this ship now before it's too late.
All right, man. Appreciate you coming in the studio,
Brandon.
my guy.
Really appreciate you. All right, folks. Elephant in the room. I know, just as Brandon said at the beginning of that segment, my hair was horrendous. So I sincerely apologize if I was a little bit of an eyesore there. It was pouring rain as I was getting to the city after taking the train from New Jersey into Penn Station, taking the Uber, and then just got downpoured on right before I got in studio. And last time I was in studio, loved how I looked, hated how I looked there. So again, my apologies if you didn't love Wardy without the hat that time. I will do my best to make sure that we have things nice and structured. I didn't even get a chance to really go ahead and kind of prep myself beforehand. We just kind of went in and did it. I just want to put that out there because I've had some bad hair days, but that one feels like it's up there under the bright lights and everything in between. I go for the messy look, but that one felt a bit more egregious than what it typically is. But on a serious note here, everybody, and make sure to continue to check out our segments with the New York Post because they will be ever reoccurring moving forward. We have a lot of very exciting things cooking up on that front. I'm looking forward to sharing more with you guys, hopefully in the near future. But for now, going back to the point of that conversation, why I relays with what we're talking about now is the emphasis on pitching. Because as I relayed there, and I'll say it once more, every single Mets starter, the veterans that we have been reliant on that are supposed to be the go-to guys for this Mets team have not been that for the vast majority of the season. Now, there are an abundance of factors as to why this is, but it goes without saying that is headlined by injuries. Injuries have been the biggest demise for the Mets and their pitching staff this season. It goes all the way back to beginning of the year in spring training. Frankie Montas shows up to spring as a New York Met on that $34 million two-year contract that we had a feeling was going to age like milk, and lo and behold, it is most certainly aged like milk already. We see him go down with injury right away. Why? Probably because he wasn't in the best shape to begin camp. Let's call it how it is. Sean Manaea deals with an oblique injury, the worst kind of injury to start your season because they're so fit. They are so what's the right word that I'm looking for here? They're so sensitive. Obliques are not things that you can rush. And Sean Manaea tried to rush it, and he had a setback because of that. So Manaea and Montas are already on the shelf for you to begin the season. You're without them for the first month or two, mind you. Then you add in everything else that happens. From Kodai Senga going down with his injury right away in mid-June, he's never been the same. That's why he's rocking a AAA Syracuse Mets uniform, and we don't even know if he's going to be back with this Mets team before the season's end. Tyler McGill went down with injury. He's been rehabbing heavily since then, and Carlos Mendoza just relayed to the media yesterday at the time of us talking right now that he's seeking multiple opinions on his elbow. What does that mean, everybody? He's trying to avoid what will likely be the inevitable, either Tommy John surgery or reconstructive Tommy John surgery. Terrible news for Tyler, and I wish him the best in recovery should he have to get that procedure done. Griffin Canning, who looked solid for the Mets, even though he had a right around a 3.7 ERA, was brilliant the first month and a half, then got a little rocky and then was looking good again, and then went down with a ruptured Achilles injury, which has had him sidelined for the entirety of the season. The list goes on and on when it comes to injuries for this Mets rotation. We are not foreign to it. We expect it. It has been a commonality, but it's something to amplify because while that is not something that David Stearns himself can control when building this rotation configuration heading into the season, what David Stearns can control and did a lack thereof in that regard is to actually look at the rotation and view it as much quality as they had, because the Mets had quality in increments, but they did not have quality and true substance of significance. When you look at top to bottom how the rotation started to begin the season, with the exception of Kodai Senga, there were massive question marks as to what you would be getting, not only in Kodai returning when he missed all of last year with injury, was batting practice, the Dodgers in the NLCS, to Sean Manaea on the shelf and Montas on the shelf. Quickly, this year began for this Mets team already down in the count when it came to what their initial expectations were for the rotation. And David Stearns, who I will say time and time again, I thoroughly enjoy as Mets president. I like him a lot. I think he is the right man for the job, and I think that he's going to steer this team into continued success. However, we can call it how it is. In year two of David Stearns as Mets president of baseball operations, he has been nothing short of an utter failure when it comes to the actual guys that he brought back. Everything and then some has fallen completely on its face, whether it's because of injuries or inconsistencies. And where David Stearns falls most to blame here is not necessarily for the injuries, but being cognizant of the fact that these guys can be injury riddled, injury plagued, given their history. Being wary of you have in-house options to consider in the first half that were performing well enough and didn't really feel that you were rushing them up too hard to suggest to at minimum consider them in a sample size or two. Instead, David Stearns sat on his hands, said, no, we're going to rock the Brandon Woodells, the Justin Hagemans, and the Huascar Brosbans, all the spot starters of the world, just for the Mets to have an ensuing record in those kind of games of well below 500, mind you. And when speaking of well below 500, that has been the story of this Mets team. The Mets have been the fourth worst baseball team in all of the game currently going back to June 13th. They were one of the best in baseball on June 12th, and they have now literally been bottom 5 worst in the game, right around the Washington Nationals, the Colorado Rockies, and far from the LA Dodgers, the Philadelphia Phillies, and other top dogs that they're supposed to be in connection with. And to expand more on just how bad things have went for this Mets team in the regard of their pitching staff, and we're talking about starters and relievers here, I want to give a quick shout out to Unbiased Mets Fan on X, the Mets X, as a matter of fact. He's a follower of mine, and he did a breakdown that we saw, just a day ago. September 10th is when he posted this. So if stats are slightly skewed, that is why, just because of the fact that we did not necessarily see the final line for that final starter be added into this. But the point stands here. And yes, I would also like to make clear that the Mets weren't the only team, a top dog team this past year entering 2025 that fallen flat on its face with a lot of their offseason acquisitions. The Dodgers, in hindsight, had themselves an absolutely dreadful offseason. And it wasn't just LA. We saw many contending teams, many teams that were looking to add rightfully for their club, get the job done. And when you look at what the Dodgers have done, the Yankees have done, and other big market teams, most of them, for the most part, flopped and fell flat on their face when it came to what their offseason acquisitions were and what they were supposed to be versus the reality that they got this season. So let me make clear as I relay all the following numbers, David Stearns is not alone. He's just one of many prominent execs that have swung and missed more than they've hit home runs that we've seen over the past calendar offseason. But to start from the top here, everybody, let's get into this, because what do we see? Griffin Canning, right? He's on that 1-year, $4.25 million contract, and while he was rock solid for the Mets, he provided 3 quality starts in 76 innings pitched. Frankie Montas, 2 years, $34 million, already far and away the worst move that we've ever seen David Stearns make. So much so that he now has a 6+ ERA, isn't going to pitch for the Mets through 2026, rehabbing from Tommy John surgery, and his contract is over after the 2026 season. So very fitting, he's getting his payday just to do nothing but be dog water. He was horrendous and provided 0 quality starts and roughly 40 innings. Sean Manaea this season, 45 innings pitched, a 5.7 ERA, almost 6 now, mind you. He has provided 0 quality starts. That goes back to my point earlier with Brendan London saying how it makes little to no sense to throw Sean Manaea out there the next turn in the order, because you can go with a 5-man instead of a 6-man rotation right now and box out Sean Manaea at absolute minimum and utilize him more in a piggyback situation, which is what's likely going to be best for him if he's at all utilized by the Mets should they actually crack postseason play, as they currently are still just 2 games up right now on the San Francisco Giants, and I believe are now well within reach of the Cincinnati Reds too, because the Reds won this past night. As we actually take a little sneak peek, the Reds and the Giants are now tied 2-2 apiece. Mind you, the Mets lost to the Reds. They have not been performing nearly as good as they should be, no matter if they're playing down to competition, up to competition. When it comes to the actual competition, below 500, above 500, the Mets have been the same. They have been consistently inconsistent throughout the entirety of the season. And expand more on these inconsistencies and how they pair right now that we see with the pitching, it goes on. We look at guys like not only Sean Manaea, Clay Holmes, as we know, has been not good at all. His past 6-7 starts has been lucky to give us tops 5 innings, has been a true 5-and-dive starter that averages 3, 4, 5 earned runs every single time out there. When we look at David Peterson, a stronghold, the lone man to rely on in this Mets rotation, was brilliant for a calendar year from June of 2024 when he returned from his hip surgery from that previous ensuing offseason to now what we have seen since June of this year. And folks, really since the second half of this season, David Peterson too has been a liability in this rotation. ERA well over 4, has not given you nearly as much length as what you're hoping, but because of the fact that he's given us some length, the bar has been so low that we've accepted and appreciated that, because no one else has even sniffed it. Again, the Mets set a record going back to 1901 of having the longest lasting run of multiple months on end of not getting a starter outside of David Peterson to give them a quality start, to actually give them going in and securing a full 6 innings. No one has been able to really do so up until the kids have been called upon. And we're going to talk more about the kids in a second, but amplify the relievers. Let's get into this one because, mind you, these numbers are as September 10th. These do not quantify for what we saw yesterday. So, for example, Gregory Soto got absolutely rocked. I mean, rocked that we saw this past day. He was horrendous. Prior to that, he was looking good, even though the whip isn't looking great at now over a 1.4. Tyler Rogers has not been a problem. He has a sub-2 ERA for the Mets. We love that. Ryan Helsley has been a problem. Is back to over an 11 ERA as a Mets reliever. Whether it's tipping pitches, whether it's confidence, really lack thereof, or something combined, which I'm sure is the case here, Ryan Helsley continues to prove his inability to be at all a consideration for the Mets to rely on for the remainder of the season. And that's a massive problem when he was your biggest trade deadline acquisition, reliever-wise. You gave up Jesus Baez, who may turn out to be a rock-solid prospect, for a rental Helsley, in which it's not David Stearns' fault here. This is not David's fault that this reliever has crumbled. The only fault that you can maybe make is why go after Ryan Helsley, who's thrived in just a small market, knowing that there's a lot of uncertainty how he will handle the big market while being utilized in a reliever role that he hasn't really been in a number of years. And that is outside of being a closer. He's been utilized in not even setup situations really for the Mets, but more so just in various circumstances in ball games. His latest outing, we saw him get rocked this past day against the Phillies as the Mets lost 11-3, and that was, mind you, that happened after my recording with the New York Post. So he went from having a good outing to a bad outing against the Phillies yet again. He did the exact same thing that we saw against the Phillies in their series sweep 2 weeks ago. He was good in the first outing, bad in the next. Ironically, what we have in common with both of those, at least, is that I was in attendance for both of those good outings, both at Citi Field and in Philadelphia, and I was not in attendance for when he got rocked the ensuing day or so after. But the point that we're trying to make here is that with the expectation heading in the season and knowing how you live and die through your pitching, that is what built this Mets team to getting 21 games above 500 earlier this year. The only way that happened was because their pitching exceeding expectations. Since the pitching has been the demise, since they have went down domino by domino, one by one after another, since June, this club has not been the same, and there's no immediate sign that they will be the same. And the reason for that is Noah McLean, Brandon Sproat, Jonathan have leashes as to how much they can really give you. We don't know to what degree is their ceiling this year. Have we already seen it with Noah McLean? Will we have yet to see it with Brandon Sproat and Jonathan? These are questions we don't have answers to. All we have is what we know right now. And Noah McLean through 5 starts has been brilliant, and he's heavily helped the Mets. But you saw how Noah McLean goes 5 innings, his first 5-inning outing of 1 run baseball, his quote-unquote worst start as a Met thus far. That leads him to getting his first loss on his record in a very Jacob deGrom fashion, because the Mets bats not only didn't show up, but they showed that if you're not able to provide a length, that they completely roll over and die. There is a commonality between the Mets winning ways and getting a starter to go at least 6+ innings. But that's also the problem, because Jonathan, yes, he allowed four runs, and that's a problem. The offense doesn't like early deficits. They've been horrendous on trying to handle early deficits all year long. They have been dreadful in that regard. Eric Chavez will tell you first. At least he should be telling you first, even though he's going to go ahead and yap to you on social media about how you, the fan, are too focused on the stats right now, even though the stats say that outside of a 3-week window, this Mets offense has nothing to be on a high horse about. But getting back to the moral point here again of the pitching and the struggles that we have seen with this team is that they have mounted, and they have been a commonality that we've seen for a good stretch of time now. And it's not only injuries, it's the wrong moves that David Stearns made initially heading into the season, not being proactive enough until it's too little too late. But then when you have Jonathan giving up 4 earned runs, still giving you 6 innings, a quality outing, all things considered still, only give up 3 hits and they were all long balls and the easy batter's park to hit a bomb him outside of Coors, and that is going to be Cincy there at Great American or whatever they label it there. The point is that Jonathan kept the Mets in the ball game, and the offense rolled over and died against a solid Brady Singer, but still not enough. Hunter Green, you can justify, but even then, for the Mets to be shut down offensively in 2 out of 3 days, where they struck out 12 effing times because of their opponent starter carving them up, that's showing the rolling over and die mentality. And that has been another sticking point of what's went so wrong with this Mets team throughout the course of the year. And it's not just pitching. The offense plays a factor too, and we're going to lean into that here in a second. But we have to amplify the pitching, because should the Mets not make postseason, Should they roll over and die in the wild card, it'll go in direct hand with not getting quality. Because even when they are starting to get quality, even when Brandon Sproat gives you 6 innings of 3 earned run baseball in his major league debut against Hunter Green in Cincy, against a red-hot Reds team, hungry at least to try to beat the Mets in that wild card, what could be a eventual thing of a matchup for them, pushing for that wild card, Sproat doesn't allow a hit over 5 innings, and this Mets offense is still nowhere to be seen. So, okay, if this team is not going to step up even when they're getting relative quality from their young starters, how can we be instilled in confidence when these veterans continue to churn out what have been horrendous, lackadaisical at best 5 and 9 outings? The Mets have a major problem that goes beyond one singular thing, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out. All you have to be is a diehard fan like myself, the many of you guys watching this that have watched every aspect of this team for the past 3+ months. I'm not going to sit here and kick and scream. That's what the post-game shows and immediate reactions are usually for. Here's to get down to the brass tacks and the numbers, because the numbers say that this Mets team has been dreadful. Again, they are currently 31 and I believe 46, if not 47 now, since June 12th. That is the 4th worst record in Major League Baseball. What about this Mets team has you thinking that they even deserve to be in postseason play? Because outside of Juan Soto's brilliance, they most certainly do not. When you take a look at how much ground the Mets have lost because of their lackadaisical pitching over this stretch, they've lost a absolutely absurd 14.5 to 15 games in the standings over this stretch. And the Phillies were trailing by roughly 6 games at one point, mind you, but it still didn't matter. Now we look at the Mets and their pitching. Let's take the following. They own the 5th worst ERA during this stretch that we have seen, with a 5 ERA plus. And that got inflated even more for them, their 11-3 defeat this past night against the Phillies. Every aspect about this club has not been in unison. And there's one man who painted this picture greater than anyone else, who finally said it verbatim, calling it how it is with the media. And I'm going to relay this to each and every one of you, because to see the reaction, to see this remark, I think is very fitting on the team morale and the mentality of this Mets club. And folks, I'm sorry to break it to you, it's bad. It's not good, and I don't really know if we're at all going to find a resolution. I hope we do, but let's hear a quick word from Mets unsung, unofficial captain, Francisco Lindor.
Francisco, why do you think that you guys have had, a number of stretches like this so far this season?
We haven't been consistent. It's one of those years that things haven't clicked for a long time. It's in baseball you have ups and downs, and those are guarantees. You try to limit the downs, and you try to ride them the high as long as you can. And for some reason, it's been a very wavy season. We're still in a position that we can make the year look completely different. And everyone here, it's pushing towards that, fighting to try to get on that wave and just ride it as long as we can. It's basically the game of momentum, and when we haven't been able to capitalize on the times that we have had the momentum.
Now, on one hand, I say to myself as a fan, truer words could have not been said by Francisco Lindor. He just said verbatim what I've been saying to you, the viewer, countlessly for months on end, because we've all seen it, but we have not seen many players actually go the lengths to actually say word for word what is happening. There has been no consistency. They haven't had the momentum. They haven't had the vibes. And this is a major problem. And to see how not only deflated and demoralized Lindor looked in this post-game presser is a lack of encouragement for someone like myself, and I'm sure for you guys too, because if he's supposed to be our team leader and he's basically giving off the vibes already that this just has not been the year, making that comment with the belief that it will not be the Mets' year, that's very frustrating. And it's frustrating because while I'm sure it's more frustrating for him and all the players, because they're the ones that go out there and play and grind every single day, for us, it's really deflating because we've seen the writing on the wall for so long. He's seen the writing on the wall for so long. And you would think that there would be a greater approach in making things better. Now, I don't know what happens when it comes to team meetings. I don't know what happens when it goes to things in the clubhouse, what have you. I don't know how vocal or lack thereof Lindor has been this year. But what I do know is that this is a Mets team that looks like a complete shell of a baseball club that's supposedly supposed to have, I don't know, World Series aspirations entering this season. If your name is not Juan Soto, there's been nothing about you that I think should be overly encouraging with your year that you've had. Yes, we've had the flashes in the pan of success with certain players, sure, but to see where they are currently at this season, the way that they continue to roll over and die like it's nothing in their current 5-game losing skid at the time I was talking right now, like how they dropped 15 of 18 games in the first half when David Stearns should have been proactive and helping the rotation more when he had an opportunity to do so internally and externally, by at minimum bringing in veteran options to help with more stability than what they had at the time, to then dropping 14 of 16 post-trade deadline. I mean, good teams do not play this bad this long. And we can sit here and say to ourselves, oh yeah, they still have an opportunity to make playoffs, and they do. But making playoffs and actually doing something are completely different. Can the Mets scuffle all the way to postseason play, get a spark going with a big home run, and ride that? Absolutely. We saw that happen last year. But what we also saw happen last year was a Mets team that had the vibes, that had the aura, and most certainly had the excitement and team commitment with some great team morale all summer long, headlined by Lindor, Jose Iglesias, JD Martinez, Carlos Mendoza, among others. All those vibes, all those little things that we said were lacking initially heading into the season, with the exception of Juan Soto, were never addressed until it's too little too late now. So no one, again, should be shocked here. No one should think I have to be a rocket scientist to break down and figure out what is wrong with this Mets team. No, we know exactly what is wrong with this Mets team, and it's everything that I've just relayed to each and every one of you. Now the great question is, are they going to change something? Are they going to prove us wrong? Or is what we have seen for the past 3 months a continuation of what we are going to continue to see for the next 2 weeks, leading into either postseason play or the official end of the 2025 Mets? That, folks, is what we're going to be strapped in together to wait and see in real time. Thank you guys again so much for watching. Let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below, your frustration level, your biggest qualms with David Stearns and this Mets pitching staff so far this year, the things that you've liked about this team versus what you don't like, your optimism level. What are things that you think can get this Mets team right before it's too little too late? But again, I'm beating a dead horse here at this point. We have like 2 weeks or so left on the season, and I've been saying this stuff to you guys going all the way back to June. I'm exhausted. I'm tired of it. I know you are too. Let's see if somehow, some way, this team can make a change. Thank you guys again. I'll see you all in the next one for our post-game show and all the other content that we're going to have dropping here on the platform in the coming days. And as always, no matter what, everybody, let's go Mets. Peace out.